G'day everyone, welcome to another episode of the Purple Colour Glasses. In this episode I'll be going through my tips for round 15. It's a pretty hard round to pick, lots of the top sides are playing each other, all the top 8 play each other, and then a lot of the bottom sides are playing each other as well, so it makes it quite hard to pick. I'm going to go through all the games, one by one, and I'll spend a bit more time talking about the Freo game that's on Saturday. So let's kick it off. First game is Thursday night, Melbourne against Brisbane. And my initial gut feeling tip was to go with Brisbane, but I think I need to spend a bit of time unpacking this and think about if that's who I'm still going to go with. And there's quite a few of these tips that I'm really nervous about. I may change my mind a couple of times, but as per this video, we're locking it in. All right, so the teams have come out for this game because it's a Thursday game. So for Melbourne, they get Stephen May. He comes in. Wiedemann is back, as well as Bedford. Big outs for them is Max Gorn with the ankle. But for Brisbane as well, they've got out Darcy Gardner, who's got a lung injury. I think he didn't get that in the Freo game. I think it was the game after that. But he copped a big collision in the Freo game. Pretty sure he got subbed off. And then the following game, he also got injured. So, or it might have been the one after that, because there was a bye, so if he's listed as an out, he must have played the last game before the bye, which was against St Kilda. So yeah, it must have been that game. Zorko's out with a hamstring. He's been playing a little bit injured most of the year. He hasn't been going at full tilt, I think. Darcy Fort's out. Yeah, he's all right. And then Zach Bailey through health and safety protocol. So those are actually three pretty big outs for Brisbane. The thing is, Melbourne's forward entries haven't been great. They've been held to scores of about 60 odd in the last couple of weeks. But do they lose 4 in a row? That's the question I'm trying to just debate in my head as I've thought through the week is, will Melbourne actually lose 4 in a row? Brisbane rarely play at the MCG. I don't think they've won there since 2014. They're not at their absolute best side. I think Harris Andrews has been underperforming a bit. Marcus Adams isn't flying as much as he was at the start of the year. But down the other end, when they play the three talls, I think that's McStay, Danaher, and Hipwood, they've won 11 out of 12. So, if you look at the midfield battle, so you got Clary Oliver and Petrarca up against Neil and McCluggage. As you sort of your 1-2. Brayshaw's been playing well for Melbourne. Viney's been solid, but it's really those periphery type players like the half forwards and the half backs for Melbourne. They just haven't really been contributing as much and generating a lot of their play. They got Salem back, but I think I'm just going to lock it in. I'm going to go with Brisbane. I'm going to go with Brisbane. I'm going to stick with Brisbane. The gut feel I had at the start was they got close against Geelong, they got close against Freo, but they were both games, I think, where Freo and Geelong more so controlled large portions of the game. They were never really at risk of losing that. And then once Freo put a gap on Brisbane, it was very much goal for goal. So I think they'll be eyeing off an away team, a good away win against a decent side. So I'll be going for Brisbane in this one. I've already spent quite a bit of time dissecting one game. So we got Friday, Western Bulldogs up against Hawthorn, and I insta-tipped Bulldogs, but then I thought, man, Hawthorn's beaten a lot of good teams this year, but I think most of the teams they've beaten are actually in the top 8, so this works in the Western Bulldogs' favour because they're not in the top 8 at the moment. Hawthorn have struggled against teams that are closer to them on the ladder. I do think they're a team that can force a lot of pressure on those handball chains. But I think the Dogs' midfield's quite deep. Norton seems like he's playing well. Sisley's a really good defender, though, so it'd be interesting to see how he goes up against them. But Hawthorn do leak scores. So I'll be tipping the Bulldogs in this one, but won't be surprised if the Hawks win. Then quite a tough game. West Coast against Essendon, and I'm tipping West Coast. Not with a great deal of faith. It's more, I don't really think Essendon are good enough to win 2 games in a row. So they've beaten St Kilda. They're now going to get on the plane, go over to Perth, and knock off West Coast. Yeah, I just don't see it happening. West Coast is starting to get some of their experienced players back. They're playing them in positions that are probably a bit better for their team structure and their conditioning. So they're playing Yo down at halfback. I think they traditionally want to play him through the midfield, but they've been bringing in blokes underdone too often. And I think that's just a better position based on where his conditioning would be. I think are they going to get Sheed back this week? I don't think so. I think Shui will be in. So they're starting to get a few more of those core guys back. McGovern out for them's a big out. But really outside of Peter Wright, it's not like they've got a really super damaging forward line. I think Barras can probably look after him, and the other guys can sort of just, put in a good performance. They're due a win, West Coast. I don't think they'll just keep having this massive losing streak, and this will be one of the games they'll eye off as a win. I think the only other sort of easier game they've got in their sort of run home to the end of the year is Adelaide, back in Perth. So we're going West Coast more because I don't have a lot of faith in Essendon. Marvel Stadium, we're up Saturday morning. Freo against Carlton. And how the tables have turned. Typically, Freo is sort of pittering along, and the injuries are piling up, and then we've got to go up against Carlton, and they touch us up. But the shoe's on the other foot. Both teams are going fairly well. Freo's going a little bit better than Carlton, but Carlton are still doing quite well. And they've got no defenders. Welcome to our world a couple of years ago, Carlton, where we had no defenders. And it's quite tough if Justin Longmire and the coaching panel roll out Griffin Logue, Matt Taberner, and Roy Lobb against Carlton. It'll be Lockie Young plus one other down back. It won't be a great tall forward line for Carlton. I'm hearing rumours they may bring back Wiedering early, but I think it'll be a bit underdone. And he's really one of their key players, Carlton, so I don't think they'll rush him back. They'll probably play the long game. If I look at the tools, so Mackay and Curnow, quite dangerous. Mackay's got a hold of us before, but I think we'll play Logue as a swingman. We'll start him up forward. If they're getting on top, we can move him back. We'll back in Cox and Pearce to cover them. There's rumours that Luke Ryan's got a bit of a flu, so he may miss. So it'll be interesting to see how that back line shapes up. Maybe we actually go one backman less. There was Ethan Hughes being trialled out on the wing, and Liam Henry down at Peel. So I think Frederick comes straight back in for Switkowski, who's got a back fracture. Taberner may or may not come in. So that's two forwards in. So then maybe you move Griffin Logue back if Luke Ryan's out. So I think there's just a few things with team structure, and they're playing the cards quite close to their chests. Their ruck situation with Carlton's not great either. But where they're still quite strong is their midfield group. The only mid that's missing at the moment is Chera. But they've got their full complement, and they were bullied a bit in the midfield last week, so they should get a bit of a rev up. I think they conceded 70-odd inside 50s to Richmond. So the only way I think Carlton win this game is if our midfield goes to sleep and just let Cripps and Hewitt and these guys just walk it straight out of the middle into their forward line. If we just halve a lot of contests and get the ball forward, we really should win with the weight of numbers. And that's just what we need. Again, it's just another solid performance from all round. Does make me a bit nervous playing another team in the top 8 away in Melbourne and being the favourite. But you come with this expectation. We're playing good football and just need to keep carrying on. And hopefully there's no slowness coming out of the bye and getting jumped, because Carlton played last week and we had the bye. Next game, Geelong against Richmond. This is such a close game. Both teams are really in form at the moment. I've tipped against Geelong a couple of times. They've made me look silly. I've at periods got off the Richmond bandwagon, and now they think strung 6 out of 7 or 7 out of 8. I think Richmond have played slightly better opponents than Geelong. But yes, I think Geelong's probably got the better key position players. And I think Richmond's maybe got a little bit more depth around the ground or around the middle of the park. Geelong aren't absolutely humming. I think Selwood's getting on a bit. Dangerfield comes back this week. They've spent a bit of time conditioning him, so he should come out a bit more cheerer up than he did earlier in the year. Guthrie, Not Zach Guthrie's the one that plays down back. I'm talking about the other Guthrie. I think Cam Guthrie, I think it is, through the middle of the ground. He hasn't been as impactful this year. Mitch Duncan's been solid. I think he can go to another level. So I think some of their mids have a few more gears based on what I've seen them before. That sort of middle-aged group they've got. Richmond, Cochin goes out, who I think's more of their sort of solid two-way running midfielder, which will impact them. I think it's a bigger loss if Prestia goes out, but he should be fine. Dustin Martin comes back in. He hasn't been as impactful this year. So I'm going to tip Richmond. It's at the MCG. They've got a bit of form, and that's really all I'm going with. It's a real coin flip game. I could see Geelong winning by 40. Like, wouldn't be surprised. I can see Richmond getting up by a couple of goals if they win. I think it's a close game if Richmond win. And I think it's a thumping if Geelong win. So I'll be tipping Richmond in this one. I'm locking it in. We then move on to Sydney against St Kilda at the SCG. They've looked really flat the last couple of weeks, St Kilda. And Sydney have been a very hard team to pick this year. They've gone away and knocked off some good sides. They've been inconsistent against some teams you'd expect them to beat. North Melbourne almost got over the top of them. They're not a great side at the SCG. They almost play better away from home. Saints, they looked tired, lethargic against Essendon after that Brisbane game. I'm not sure if they've had the time to sort of recover and get a bit more energy amongst the group this week. They'll be wanting to respond after their loss to Essendon. But Sydney will want to do the same thing. They were sort of expected to go over and beat Port. Port are going to be a decent side at home, I think, till the end of the year. Going to be a bit of a bogey side for a few teams. Maybe the finals maker. So I'll be tipping Sydney in this one, but not with a great deal of confidence. I think the Saints are a red-hot chance in this one. They really were taking it up to Brisbane before there were a couple of injuries for Saints, and then I think that just sort of sucked a bit of the life out of them against Essendon. I can see them bouncing back in this game, but maybe this is where it gets all a bit too hard for St Kilda. I'll learn a lot from this game as well, because some of Sydney's younger group are, I think, just being challenged a little bit by the week in, week out, and teams sort of going after them a bit, which I thought is what would happen this year, as a few more sides would figure them out a little bit and put some more work into them. Last year, they were a bit of a surprise packet. I think caught a few teams. This year, I think they're finding it a lot harder to back it up week in, week out. Sunday. So we've got the first game down at Blundstone, Tassie. North Melbourne against Adelaide. Oh, I thought long and hard about this one. Am I brave enough to tip North Melbourne? If North Melbourne don't win this game, I don't think they win another game for the year. They're decent down in Tassie. I think they would have used the bye break and just chilled out a little bit, relaxed. There's a lot of pressure on the outer. Just bring it down a level. Go away to Tassie, where most teams don't like going, and play Adelaide. Adelaide have been okay. They're not like absolutely atrocious every time you go watch them play, but you're never surprised when they get beat at the moment. They are that sort of tier above like Essendon, North and West Coast at the moment, but I'm actually going to go North Melbourne here. Think North, so I'm tipping the bottom two to win this week. I'm tipping North and West Coast to both win. So we'll see how the percentages line up and where they'll be on the ladder. Collingwood against GWS, danger game for the Pies. GWS are just playing open, free-flowing footy. Collingwood may be challenged a little bit by that. There's been a lot of noise that's gone on over the weekend, during the week, about the DeGoey Barley incident and Ginnivan and Quaynor on TikTok and stuff. It's all pretty juvenile stuff, really. It's been a bit of a media beat up, but there is some legitimacy to some of those issues. It's just how much is this going to affect Collingwood? They're a younger group. Some of them may be impacted by it, but there's still a lot of old heads there. You know, looking at guys like Crisp and Taylor Adams and Pendlebury and Sidebottom, they you know, more. These guys have seen all this before, right? So it's just probably water off a duck's back for Collingwood. They play their game. I'm tipping them against GWS. They're one of the form teams at the moment, Collingwood. The only thing that I can see them tripping them up is if they let these things that are going off the field impact them. They've been a bit unprofessional on the break, and they just come up against a GWS team who've got nothing to lose and just play open footy, and they lose a game like 110 to 100 points. Just because they have some defensive lapses or they don't chase back enough in the middle. So yeah, I'll be going the Pies in that one. And then the last game of the round, Port Adelaide against Gold Coast. Hard game to tip in this one. I was tempted to tip Gold Coast, but I'm going to be going Port Adelaide. I don't think Gold Coast have shown me enough yet to prove that they're a team that can go away to some of these interstate areas, South Australia, Western Australia, and win. So yep, they went to Sydney and won. Sydney have a pretty terrible record at the SCG. I want to see them, and I think they travelled to Melbourne, I think, and lost to Collingwood. I want to see them go to Adelaide or Perth and beat one of the better teams there. So if they'll need to go to Perth and beat Freo. That's not a fixtured game this year. Historically, they've struggled against West Coast as well. And then in Adelaide, both Adelaide teams have beat up on them in Adelaide. So I'll be tipping Port in this one. But it's a big step forward for Gold Coast, and I think they're a sneaky chance for finals if they can actually win this game, because I think that'll prove to them that yep, they can win they can win away from home, and then they'll need to knock off a few teams on the way, and then at home up at the Gold Coast they look pretty safe. So this is one they'll need to get, I think, to push in. But I think if they lose, then I think that field sort of narrows down to that Collingwood, Richmond, Bulldogs group. Unless Bulldogs lose, you know. So those are my tips for the week. Very hard. If you tip 9, you're either a football genius or you know nothing about football and you've just randomly clicked and you've got lucky 9 out of 9. Let me know what you think. What's the game you're looking forward to the most? I'm obviously looking forward to Fremantle against Carlton, but there'll be quite a few neutral games I'll watch throughout the week. I'll probably tune in for the Brisbane-Melbourne game. That one's shows a lot of interest to me, and maybe two teams we may play later in the year, so I just want to know how they're travelling. And thank you all for tuning in. Leave me a like and a comment, and I'll catch you next week for my review of the round. Catch you all later. Bye.